Hi folks, Puffin here. Thanks for watching another Puffin's Pothead Passages. This one's going to be a little different. First of all, I changed strains of the herb. I'm now smoking sour cookies, still from the Live Well store. I'm always going to go to the Live Well store, but I just want to mention their name to give them credit for helping with the herbal inspiration of these projects. And I also wanted to give credit to New Jersey for being the 14th state to legalize recreational weed. Just a quick word. Some people have medical, some people have recreational. It made me think today that even if you smoke medically, you're getting a recreational benefit. It's still enjoyable. It's not like you missed that part. If you, although I guess there are strains that don't have THC in them, but if you smoke regular weed medicinally, and if you smoke recreationally, you're getting a medical benefit. But at the same time, it is a spiritual plant, and it's kind of like what you focus on more. If you're not focused on the recreational benefit, then maybe it doesn't affect you as much. And if you are focused on that, then you get more of that. Even if you're not focused on the medical benefits, it's still providing a medical benefit. But the same is also true in the spiritual dimension. That as a spiritual plant, it's providing you a spiritual benefit. Even if you don't really pay attention to that part, it is providing it. And if you do pay attention to it, then you get more out of it. And then if you bring in a spiritual focus with your herbal practices, then, or even without, if you don't smoke weed, that there's all sorts of ways to get into a spiritual focus just by getting into a spiritual focus. So in this case, I've been using the book. I have been using the Bible, but I'm going to change it up a little bit today because I couldn't find my Bible, although I would like to, if I can find my little Bible around, I might want to do another video on the Bible later today. But from my own tradition, the fairy tradition, I was going to read a passage from Dorothy and the Wizard in Oz. And I was actually raised in a Christian tradition, is why I have some familiarity with the Bible. But as I've said in my video before, you can do this with any type of spiritual book. And in my childhood, I also chose the spiritual tradition of a fairy belief that came primarily from the Oz books. There's 17 or 18 of them, and this is probably one that you haven't heard of or heard anything from. It's called Dorothy and the Wizard in Oz, one of their return journeys. So I hope I don't spoil anything for anyone by reading a random passage from this book, but I did want to show how you can do this from any book. And then this is my tradition, so this is my belief, and I probably haven't even read this particular book in some time, so it'll be nice for me to get back into it. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now, and here we go. Everything, grumbled the horse. Well, let's go down again, he said in his hoarse voice. Nonsense, snapped the tired wizard. What's the matter with you, old man? Everything, grumbled the horse. I've taken a look at this place, and it's no fit country for real creatures to go to. Everything's dead up there. No flesh or blood growing thing anywhere. Which is really stark. I don't know exactly where he's talking about because I don't remember this part, but that's spooky. Never mind, we can't turn back, said Dorothy. I'm kind of glad I just read on because Dorothy's got good advice. And we don't intend to stay there anyhow. It's dangerous, growled Jim in a stubborn tone. See here, my good steed, broke in the wizard. Little Dorothy and I have been in many queer countries in our travels, and always escaped without harm. We've been to the marvelous land of Oz, haven't we, Dorothy? So we don't much care what the Country of Gargoyles is like. So they're not even in the land of Oz, apparently. They think they just came from the Country of Gargoyles. Go ahead, Jim, and whatever happens, we'll make the best of it. All right, answered the horse. This is your excursion and not mine. So if you get into trouble, don't blame me. That's just great. He said, I gave my advice. I said maybe we shouldn't do this, but it's you guys are the ones plotting this journey. With this speech, he bent forward and dragged the buggy up the remaining steps. The others followed it, and soon they were all standing upon a broad platform and gazing at the most curious and startling sight their eyes had ever beheld. And I wouldn't just stop there. I'll go ahead and turn the page and keep reading. The Country of Gargoyles is all wooden. So that's what it is. He doesn't want to go up to the place they're about to go to, but they've decided, they have to go there. It's the only place to go. "The country of the gargoyles is all wooden," exclaimed Zeb, and so it was. The ground was sawdust, and the pebbles scattered around were hard knots from trees worn smooth in the course of time. There were odd wooden houses with carved wooden flowers in the front yards. The tree trunks were, of course, wood, but the leaves of the trees were shavings. The patches of grass were splinters of wood, and where neither grass nor sawdust showed was a solid wooden flooring. Wooden birds fluttered among the trees, and wooden cows were browsing upon the wooden grass. But the most amazing thing of all were the wooden people, the creatures known as gargoyles. These were very numerous, for the place was thickly inhabited, and a large group of the queer people clustered near, gazing sharply upon the strangers who had emerged from the long spiral stairway. The gargoyles are very small of stature, being less than 3 feet in height. Their bodies were round, their legs short and thick, and their arms extraordinarily long and stout. Their heads were too big for their bodies, and their faces were decidedly ugly to look upon. Some had long, curved noses and chins, small eyes and wide, grinning mouths. Others had flat noses, protruding eyes, and ears that were shaped like those of an elephant. There were many types indeed, scarcely 2 being alike, but all were equally disagreeable in appearance. The tops of their heads had no hair, but were carved into a variety of fantastic shapes, some having a row of points or balls around the top, other designs resembling flowers or vegetables, and still others having squares that looked like waffles cut crisscross on their heads. They all wore short wooden wings, which were fastened to their wooden bodies by means of wooden hinges with wooden screws, and with these wings they flew swiftly and noiselessly here and there, their legs being of little use to them. This noiseless motion was one of the most peculiar things about the gargoyles. They made no sounds at all, either in flying or trying to speak, and they conversed mainly by means of quick signals made with their wooden fingers or lips. Neither was there any sound to be heard anywhere throughout the wooden country. The birds did not sing, nor did the cows moo, yet there was more than ordinary activity everywhere. So, I could keep reading it because I love reading the book. To give my response, it's what the horse was predicting at the beginning. It's a dead country up there. Like, if we just go back to where we started, "Let's go down again," said the horse in his hoarse voice. Because as they're going up the stairs, he sees it's a dead country. Let's read a little bit more before that. At last, however, a dim light appeared above the head of them, which grew clearer and stronger as they advanced. "Thank goodness we're nearly there," panted the little wizard. Jim, who was in advance, saw the last stair before him and stuck his head above the rocky sides of the stairway. So he looked first. Then he halted, ducked down, and began to back up so that he nearly fell with the buggy onto the others. "Let's go down again." And he said, "What's the matter?" "Everything," grumbled the horse. "I've taken a look at this place, and it's no fit country for real creatures to go. Everything's dead up there. No flesh or blood or growing thing anywhere." So the problem is, in this case, everything's made of wood or carved of wood. Back then they didn't have plastic. But it's kind of like the deadest things could be if it's all animated only by, well, who knows? I mean, it's a fairy country. It's animated by magic. These things are alive, but I guess part of it being completely wood, part of it being completely noiseless, probably startled the horse. And of course, they're going to interact with them. You probably want to know why, and I do too, because I can't remember how this goes. So I'm going to get back to the story and read a little more. The group of these queer creatures was first clustered near the stairs, at first remained staring and motionless, glaring with evil eyes at the intruders who had so suddenly appeared in their land. In turn, the wizard and the children, the horse and the kitten, examined the gargoyles with the same silent attention. "There's going to be trouble, I'm sure," remarked the horse. "Unhitch those tugs, Zeb, and set me free from the buggy so I can fight comfortably." Like he's ready to get down. "Jim's right," sighed the wizard. "There's going to be trouble, and my sword isn't stout enough to cut up those wooden bodies, so I shall have to get out my revolvers." He got his satchel from the buggy and opening it took out two deadly-looking revolvers that made the children shrink back in alarm just to look at them. "What harm can the gurgles do?" asked Dorothy. "They have no weapons to hurt us with." "Each of their arms is a wooden club," answered the little man, "and I'm sure the creatures mean mischief by the looks of their eyes. Even these revolvers can merely succeed in damaging a few of their wooden bodies, and after that we will be at their mercy." "But why fight at all in that case?" asked the girl. "So I may die with a clear conscience," returned the wizard gravely. "It's every man's duty to do the best he knows how, and I'm going to do it." It sounds like so much of what people believe that lead to that type of desperate action. "Wish I had an axe," said Zeb, who's a young boy, I think, with them, who by now had unhitched the horse. "If we had known we were coming, we might have brought along several other useful things," responded the wizard, "but we dropped into this adventure rather unexpectedly." Which they did. It was all an accident when they get to this place, but you have to read the book, Dorothy and the Wizard and Us. The gargoyles had backed away a distance when they heard the sound of talking, for although our friends had spoken in low tones, their words seemed loud in the silence surrounding them. But as soon as the conversation ceased, the grinning, ugly creatures arose in a flock and flew swiftly toward the strangers, their long arms stretched out before them like the bowsprits of a fleet of sailboats. The horse had especially attracted their notice because it was the biggest and strangest creature they had ever seen, so it became the center of their first attack. But Jim was ready for them, and when he saw them coming, he turned his heels toward them and began kicking out as hard as he could. Crack, crash, bang, went his iron-shod hoofs against the wooden bodies of the gargoyles, and they were battered right and left with such force that they scattered like straws in the wind. But the noise and clatter seemed as dreadful to them as Jim's heels, for all who were able swiftly turned and flew away to a great distance. The others picked themselves up from the ground, one by one, and quickly rejoined their others. So for a moment the horse thought that he had won the fight with ease, but the wizard was not so confident. "These wooden things are impossible to hurt," he said, "and all the damage Jim has done to them is knock a few splinters from their noses and ears. They cannot make them look any uglier, I'm sure, and it's my opinion they'll soon renew the attack." "What made them fly away?" asked Dorothy. "The noise, of course. Don't you remember how the champion escaped them by shouting his battle cry?" "Suppose we escape down the stairs too," suggested the boy. "We have time just now, and I'd rather face the invisible bears than those wooden imps." "No," returned Dorothy stoutly. "It won't do to go back, for then we never get home. Let's fight it out." "That's what I advise," said the wizard. "They haven't defeated us yet, and Jim is worth a whole army." But the gargoyles were clever enough not to attack the horse the next time. They advanced in a great swarm, having been joined many more of their kind. They flew straight over Jim's head to where the others were standing. The wizard raised one of his revolvers and fired into the throng of his enemies, and the shot resounded like a clap of thunder in that silent place. Some of the wooden beings fell flat upon the ground, where they quivered and trembled in every limb. Most of them managed to wheel and escape again to a distance. Zeb ran up and picked up one of the gargoyles that lay nearest to him. The top of its head was carved into a crown. The wizard's bullet had struck it exactly in the left eye, which is a hard wooden knot. Half of the bullet stuck in the wood and half stuck out, so it had been the jar and the sudden noise that had knocked the creature down, more than the fact that it was really hurt. Before this crowned gargoyle had recovered himself, Zeb had wound a strap several times around its body, confining its wings and arms so that it could not move. Then, having tied the wooden creature securely, the boy buckled the strap and tossed his prisoner into the buggy. By that time, the others had all retired. I'll leave it there and let you read Chapter 12, A Wonderful Escape, when you get a copy of the book, because I can't just read it all. I don't have enough space on my phone. Otherwise, I would. I'm personally just shocked that the wizard had guns, but then again, it's not technically in Oz yet. In Oz, there's only one gun, and it doesn't work. And it's carried by the one soldier, the soldier with the long green whiskers, and he's just for ceremonial purposes. Because the big thing about Oz is they don't have any war, they don't have any money, and nobody dies either, but that's a fairy country type thing, and it's kind of a future type thing. So that's one reason I want to explain more about Oz in other videos, and my understanding from when I read it as a kid, as a kind of prophecy of the future. No war, no money, and everybody lives forever, but The most important thing to understand for the peacefulness of it is that whenever they mention that there's no war, they also mention that there's no money. And I think that's an important thing to understand for the future, to understand for how we get to the future, and a future that has no war and no military, or the military is there for ceremonial or different purposes like natural disasters, or you know, ch- uh, changing, correcting our negative influence on the planet by doing green energy projects so that we can restore a balance of nature. Um, Big projects, I think, is something we can have the military do, but war isn't a project at all. And get rid of it, and we'll also find a way to get rid of money too. Just have enough of everything is basically what it comes down to, so that people don't really have to keep track. Like, you know, everybody's got enough of everything they need. It's a really peaceful way to live. It also happens to be ruled by a fairy girl named Ozma. But I don't want to spoil too much of the books for you when you get a chance to read them yourself. I do want to make more videos, or I'm writing a book about this, but I put it off for far too long. So I want to get back to that and make some videos to just get the information out there, because I do think we're approaching that time where we need to start uh, living in that type of future instead of the way we have been living, one that has no money and no war. So thanks for sticking around for Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz, and for Puffin's Potted Passages number 9. I'll do maybe more of this, or more of other books when I get a chance. So thanks for watching and see you soon.